Do you recall the side dishes only found in old Betty Crocker cookbooks? These vintage recipes brought comfort and tradition to family tables. Why have these classic sides almost vanished from our kitchens? Ranch-style baked potatoes were a crowd pleaser on many mid-century American dinner tables. These potatoes were baked to a fluffy perfection, then smothered in a creamy ranch-flavored topping that brought a delightful mix of herbs and tangy zest. The ranch dressing blend, rich with buttermilk, garlic, and dill, made these spuds anything but ordinary. Imagine biting into a warm potato where the skin is slightly crisp and the inside bursts with smooth, flavorful goodness that dances on your tongue. This side dish was perfect for family dinners or potlucks, offering comforting familiarity with a touch of indulgence. Ranch-style baked potatoes were not just about flavor, but also about warmth and homeliness, fitting seamlessly alongside classic meatloaf or roast chicken. The ease of preparation and the simple ingredients made this recipe a staple in many Betty Crocker cookbooks, cherished by home cooks who wanted to impress without spending hours in the kitchen. Whether served plain or with a sprinkle of extra cheese or chopped chives, this dish remains a nostalgic favorite for those who remember the days of vintage comfort food. Orange JellO salad was a shining star of many a mid-century dinner spread, bringing a burst of sunshine to the table. This side dish combined citrusy gelatin with crushed pineapple or mandarin oranges, offering a sweet and tangy profile that refreshed the palate between heavier courses. The translucent orange hue gleamed under the dining room light, hinting at the fruity delight within. It was common to find recipes in Betty Crocker cookbooks encouraging creative additions like mini marshmallows, shredded coconut, or chopped nuts for added texture. The cool, wobbly nature of the JellO made it a playful contrast to the warm, savory mains. This salad was often served chilled, providing a moment of lightness and joy during meals where meat and potatoes dominated. Kids loved it for its sweetness and fun texture, while adults appreciated the nostalgia it evoked. Its simplicity made it a go-to for busy home cooks, and its bright flavor profile helped lift spirits, especially during winter months. Orange JellO salad was truly a dessert and a side dish all wrapped in one delightful package. Broiled grapefruit with brown sugar was a simple yet elegant side dish that warmed many hearts and kitchens. Halved grapefruits were topped generously with brown sugar, then broiled until caramelized, creating a slightly crisp, golden crust that contrasted with the juicy, tart fruit beneath. The result was a warm, zesty bite that balanced sweetness and tang in a way that felt both indulgent and healthy. This dish appeared in Betty Crocker cookbooks as a bright finish to heavier meals or as a breakfast treat for those wanting something fresh yet comforting. The caramelized sugar added depth and a subtle crunch, turning humble grapefruit into a dessert-like delight. It was especially popular during winter, when citrus was in season and the warm oven created a cozy kitchen atmosphere. The blend of warmth, tartness, and sweet caramel made this side dish memorable, and it often became a topic of conversation at the family table. It was a wonderful example of how simple ingredients could be transformed into something special with just a broiler and a little patience. Celery and walnut salad was a classic side that brought crunch and creaminess together in perfect harmony. Crisp celery stalks were sliced thin and mixed with crunchy walnuts, then tossed in a light mayonnaise or yogurt dressing, creating a refreshing contrast in textures. This salad was often a staple in Betty Crocker cookbooks, celebrated for its ease and the satisfying bite it added to any meal. The cool, slightly bitter celery balanced the rich, buttery walnuts, while the creamy dressing tied it all together with a touch of tang. It was a favored side for holiday dinners and everyday meals alike, offering a healthy option that was still indulgent enough to feel like a treat. The nutty flavor of walnuts brought depth, and the salad's pale green hues added a fresh pop of color to the dinner plate. Its simple yet elegant nature made it beloved by home cooks seeking something light and wholesome to complement heartier mains. Carrot and raisin salad was a sweet and tangy side that brightened many American tables throughout the mid-20th century. Shredded carrots were mixed with plump, sweet raisins and dressed in a creamy or tangy sauce, often based on mayonnaise or yogurt, creating a delightful balance of flavors and textures. This salad was celebrated in Betty Crocker cookbooks for its simplicity and its ability to sneak some vegetables into meals with a touch of sweetness kids would actually enjoy. The natural sugar of the raisins complemented the earthiness of the carrots, while the creamy dressing gave it richness without overwhelming the fresh ingredients. It was often served chilled, providing a cool, refreshing bite that paired well with meat dishes and casseroles. The vibrant orange and dark raisin speckles made it visually appealing, while the crunch of the carrots added a satisfying texture. Carrot and raisin salad remains a nostalgic reminder of home cooking where healthy met tasty in a perfect union. Spinach and mushroom casserole was a hearty vegetable side that brought comfort and creaminess to the dinner table. Tender spinach and earthy mushrooms were baked together in a rich, creamy sauce, often thickened with cheese or cream of mushroom soup, creating a luscious dish with layers of flavor. Betty Crocker cookbooks frequently featured this casserole as a crowd-pleasing accompaniment to roasts or holiday meals, appreciated for turning humble vegetables into something indulgent and satisfying. The mushrooms added a meaty texture that balanced the tender spinach, while the creamy sauce wrapped everything in warmth and richness. This casserole could be prepared ahead of time and baked just before serving, making it a convenient option for busy home cooks. Its combination of fresh greens and deep mushroom flavors made it a staple in kitchens longing for both nutrition and comfort. The golden top, sometimes sprinkled with breadcrumbs or extra cheese, gave it an inviting crust that made it hard to resist. Baked sweet potato fries were a popular twist on the classic potato side, offering a sweet and savory alternative that baked to crispy perfection. Thinly sliced sweet potatoes were tossed in seasonings, often cinnamon, salt, or paprika, and baked until tender on the inside and slightly crisp on the edges. This healthier option appeared in many Betty Crocker cookbooks as a way to enjoy fries without deep frying, perfect for families seeking convenience and flavor. The natural sweetness of the potatoes paired beautifully with the warm spices, creating a comforting side that complemented both casual meals and special dinners. Baked sweet potato fries were easy to prepare and could be customized with various seasoning blends, making them versatile for many tastes. Their vibrant orange color brightened the plate, and the satisfying crunch made them a hit with kids and adults alike. These fries were a testament to how a simple vegetable could be transformed into a crowd-pleasing side that brought both nostalgia and a fresh twist to the table. Cheese and pineapple skewers were a fun and flavorful appetizer side that perfectly blended sweet and savory notes. Cubed cheese, often cheddar or a mild American variety, was paired with juicy pineapple chunks on toothpicks, creating bite-sized delights that were both refreshing and rich. This combination featured prominently in Betty Crocker cookbooks as a party favorite and an easy-to-prepare hors d'oeuvre. The sharpness of the cheese contrasted with the tropical sweetness of the pineapple, making every bite a balanced explosion of flavors. These skewers were popular at potlucks, holiday gatherings, and casual get-togethers, offering a colorful and attractive option that was simple yet sophisticated. The ease of assembly made them a go-to for hosts wanting to impress without fuss. Their combination of textures, creamy cheese and juicy fruit, made for an unexpectedly delightful treat that could easily double as a side dish or a snack. Mashed Rudabagas were a less common but beloved vintage side dish that brought a buttery, creamy twist to a hearty root vegetable. This mashed treat was a staple in many Betty Crocker cookbooks, especially during times when variety was sought beyond the usual potatoes. Rudabagas, with their slightly sweet and earthy flavor, were boiled and mashed with butter and cream to create a smooth, comforting side that paired beautifully with roasted meats and stews. Their pale yellow color and mild taste made them a subtle yet satisfying addition to any plate. Unlike the more familiar mashed potatoes, Rudabagas offered a slightly different texture and a hint of natural sweetness that made the dish feel special. It was a side that echoed simpler times and frugal kitchens, where every ingredient was stretched and savored. Mashed Rudabagas stood as a testament to vintage American cooking's ability to find comfort in unexpected places. Pickled cucumber relish was a tangy and crunchy condiment that brought zip and brightness to meals, often found alongside classic meat dishes. This relish, made from finely chopped pickled cucumbers mixed with onions and spices, was a staple in many Betty Crocker cookbooks as a quick way to add flavor contrast and freshness to the dinner plate. The sharp, acidic bite of the pickles balanced rich and savory mains, while the crunchy texture provided a satisfying counterpoint. This relish was versatile, serving as a side accompaniment, a topping for sandwiches, or a tangy addition to barbecue plates. Its bright green color and lively taste made it a beloved component of many mid-century American meals. The relish's easy preparation and long shelf life made it a practical favorite in home kitchens. It perfectly captured the era's love for bold flavors and simple, accessible recipes that elevated everyday meals. Glazed pearl onions were a beloved holiday side dish that brought sweetness and elegance to many mid-century tables. These small, tender onions were gently cooked in butter and brown sugar until perfectly caramelized, their natural sweetness enhanced by the rich glaze. The result was a dish that offered both a soft texture and a shiny, inviting coating, making it a standout accompaniment for roasted meats and festive dinners. Betty Crocker cookbooks often included this recipe, praising its simple ingredients and impressive flavor. Glazed pearl onions were considered a luxurious yet accessible way to add a touch of sophistication without complicated preparation. Their subtle sweetness balanced savory mains, making them a favorite during Thanksgiving and Christmas meals. The buttery glaze clung to every bite, creating a harmony of flavors that felt both indulgent and comforting. It was a dish that could elevate any holiday spread, yet remain easy enough for home cooks to prepare with confidence. Cheesy cauliflower gratin was a rich and indulgent vegetable side that found a special place in many vintage kitchens. Tender cauliflower florets were smothered in a creamy, cheesy sauce before being baked under a crispy layer of toasted breadcrumbs. This gratin was a perfect example of comfort food, combining the mild flavor of cauliflower with the lusciousness of melted cheese and a golden, crunchy top. Betty Crocker cookbooks featured this dish as a versatile accompaniment for both everyday meals and holiday feasts. Its creamy texture and cheesy goodness made it a hit with both children and adults, especially those who might usually shy away from vegetables. The gratin's warm, bubbling surface was a welcome sight at any dinner table, signaling a dish full of hearty flavor and home-style care. This recipe demonstrated how simple vegetables could be transformed into something special and satisfying, making cheesy cauliflower gratin a nostalgic classic worth revisiting. Develed potato salad put a zesty spin on the traditional potato salad by adding a tangy mustard-based dressing that packed a flavorful punch. This vintage recipe took boiled potatoes and tossed them in a dressing made with yellow mustard, mayonnaise, vinegar, and seasonings to create a vibrant and slightly spicy side dish. Betty Crocker cookbooks celebrated deviled potato salad for its bold taste and easy preparation, making it a favorite at picnics, barbecues, and family gatherings. The mustard gave the creamy salad a lively kick that contrasted nicely with the soft potatoes, adding excitement to a classic comfort food. Often garnished with chopped chives or paprika, this salad brought both color and flavor to the table. It was a dish that pleased crowds by balancing creamy, tangy, and savory elements, all while remaining simple enough for home cooks to prepare in advance. Deviled potato salad remains a nostalgic reminder of inventive takes on beloved American classics. Baked zucchini casserole was a satisfying and versatile vegetable side that combined tender zucchini slices with cheese, breadcrumbs, and herbs for a warm, comforting dish. This casserole appeared frequently in Betty Crocker cookbooks as an easy way to make use of garden-fresh zucchini or grocery store finds. The zucchini was layered or mixed with a creamy cheese sauce, topped with crunchy breadcrumbs, then baked until golden brown and bubbling. This method brought out the best in zucchini's mild flavor, adding richness and texture that made the dish irresistible. The herbs provided fragrant notes that elevated the casserole's taste, while the toasted crust added a delightful contrast to the soft interior. Ideal for summer dinners or holiday spreads, baked zucchini casserole was cherished for its combination of freshness, comfort, and ease. It offered a delicious way to enjoy vegetables that felt indulgent without being heavy. This recipe was a testament to mid-century ingenuity in the kitchen, turning simple ingredients into something truly special. Creamed spinach was a rich and traditional vegetable accompaniment that found its way onto many classic American dinner tables. Tender spinach leaves were cooked down and enveloped in a smooth, creamy white sauce made from butter, cream, and sometimes cheese or nutmeg. This dish was prized for its silky texture and deep, comforting flavor, making it an ideal partner for steaks, roasts, and holiday meals. Betty Crocker cookbooks frequently included creamed spinach as a reliable crowd pleaser, offering home cooks a way to elevate greens into a luxurious side dish. The creaminess softened the sometimes bitter edge of spinach, creating a luscious mouthfeel that felt indulgent yet nourishing. Its glossy, pale green appearance made it visually inviting, and its rich flavor helped balance hearty mains. Creamed spinach remains a symbol of timeless comfort food, showcasing how simple ingredients can create a dish full of warmth and nostalgia. Tomato aspic was a unique savory gelatin dish that combined tomatoes, onions, and herbs set into clear aspic molds, offering a refreshing and visually striking side. This vintage recipe was popular in mid-20th century America, often featured in Betty Crocker cookbooks as an elegant yet approachable addition to the meal. The aspic's firm, jelly-like texture held the fresh tomato chunks and fragrant herbs suspended in a flavorful, savory gelatin. Served chilled, tomato aspic provided a cool contrast to warm mains and added a touch of sophistication to dinner parties and holiday spreads. The dish's translucent nature made for a colorful presentation that impressed guests and delighted the eyes. Its mix of tangy tomato flavor and subtle herbal notes created a palate-pleasing experience that was both light and satisfying. Tomato aspic is a nostalgic reminder of a time when gelatin dishes were celebrated for their creativity and flair. Roasted Brussels sprouts with bacon were a caramelized, savory side that brought together crispy, tender Brussels sprouts and smoky bacon bits in a perfect marriage of flavors. This dish was a favorite in Betty Crocker cookbooks for its ability to transform a sometimes overlooked vegetable into a crowd-pleasing classic. The sprouts were roasted until their outer leaves turned crisp and golden, while the insides remained tender and sweet. Tossed with crumbled, crispy bacon, the combination delivered smoky richness that balanced the sprouts' natural earthiness and slight bitterness. This side was often served at family dinners and holiday feasts, praised for its simplicity and bold flavor. It perfectly captured the mid-century American love for hearty, flavorful vegetables paired with savory meats. Roasted Brussels sprouts with bacon remains a nostalgic staple that continues to delight those seeking comfort with a little crunch and smoky depth. Watermelon and feta salad was a refreshing and unexpected combination that paired juicy, sweet watermelon chunks with crumbly, salty feta cheese. This side dish gained popularity as a summer staple in mid-century America and appeared in some Betty Crocker cookbooks as a light, flavorful contrast to heavier meals. The sweet, watery texture of the watermelon provided a cooling effect, while the feta added richness and a salty punch that balanced the fruit's natural sweetness. Often garnished with fresh mint or a drizzle of lemon juice, this salad offered a vibrant mix of flavors and colors on the plate. It was a perfect picnic or barbecue side, celebrated for its simplicity and its ability to refresh the palate. The unexpected pairing showcased the inventive spirit of vintage cooking, blending sweet and savory in a way that still delights today. Watermelon and feta salad remains a nostalgic reminder of sunny days and casual gatherings around the table. Eggplant parmesan bites were small baked slices of eggplant layered with tomato sauce and cheese, creating finger food that was both indulgent and convenient. These bite-sized delights appeared in Betty Crocker cookbooks as an appetizer or side dish that offered a taste of Italian-inspired comfort food. The eggplant slices were breaded and baked or lightly fried, then topped with rich tomato sauce and melted mozzarella or parmesan cheese. The layering of flavors and textures made for a satisfying bite that was crispy on the edges and gooey on top. Eggplant parmesan bites were popular at parties and family dinners, providing a crowd-pleasing option that was easy to serve and eat. Their warm, savory profile made them a beloved side that added a touch of elegance without fuss. This dish reflected the mid-century American embrace of international flavors adapted to home cooking traditions. Baked potato salad was a warm variation of the classic salad, combining potatoes with bacon, onions, and a tangy dressing served either hot or cold. This recipe appeared in Betty Crocker cookbooks as a hearty and flavorful side perfect for picnics, barbecues, and potlucks. The potatoes were usually boiled or roasted, then mixed with crisp bacon pieces and sautéed onions, all tossed in a dressing that balanced tanginess with creaminess. Serving the salad warm brought out the depth of flavors and made it especially comforting during cooler months. Its rich yet simple combination of ingredients made it a popular choice for those seeking a side that went beyond the usual. Baked potato salad offered a nostalgic taste of Americana, blending smoky, savory, and tangy notes into one satisfying dish. It captured the mid-century spirit of hearty, shareable food that brought families and friends together around the table. Marinated beets were a vibrant and tangy side dish that brought a burst of color and flavor to mid-century tables. These tender beets were soaked in a vinegar-based marinade seasoned with spices such as cloves, peppercorns, and bay leaves. The soaking process infused the beets with a bright acidity that perfectly balanced their natural earthiness. Betty Crocker cookbooks highlighted marinated beets as a simple yet elegant accompaniment, ideal for cutting through richer dishes and adding a refreshing contrast. The dish was popular for its ability to be prepared ahead of time and its pleasing mix of sweet, sour, and savory notes. Often served chilled, marinated beets were a festive favorite during holiday meals and summer dinners alike. Their bold red hue made them a striking addition to any plate, while their complex flavor made them beloved by both home cooks and guests. This recipe showcased the vintage kitchen's knack for turning humble vegetables into memorable sides that stood out in both taste and appearance. Homemade sauerkraut was a tangy, crunchy staple deeply rooted in German-American cooking traditions during the mid-20th century. This fermented cabbage was prized for its sharp flavor and probiotic benefits, offering a unique taste that complemented hearty meats and robust meals. Betty Crocker cookbooks provided simple methods for making sauerkraut at home, emphasizing patience and proper fermentation to achieve the perfect balance of sourness and texture. The process involved shredding cabbage, salting it, and letting it ferment slowly, transforming a basic vegetable into a lively and flavorful side. Sauerkraut was a common accompaniment at family dinners, Oktoberfest celebrations, and holiday feasts, especially in regions with strong German heritage. Its crisp bite and tangy punch added brightness to heavy dishes like sausages and pork roasts. This side dish embodied a connection to heritage and home-style cooking, carrying traditions across generations while offering a distinctive tang that remains beloved by many today. Green bean almondine was a classic vegetable side that combined fresh green beans sautéed with butter, garlic, and toasted almonds for a nutty, buttery flavor. This elegant dish often appeared in Betty Crocker cookbooks as an easy way to elevate simple green beans into a special occasion side. The green beans were cooked until tender but still crisp, then quickly tossed in a skillet with melted butter and minced garlic to infuse them with rich, savory notes. Toasted almonds added a delightful crunch and nutty aroma, making every bite a perfect balance of textures. Green bean almondine was popular at dinner parties and holiday tables, praised for its sophisticated yet approachable flavor. It showcased mid-century home cooking's love for combining fresh vegetables with buttery richness and a crunchy finish. This side remains a nostalgic favorite for its bright green color, satisfying bite, and warm, nutty undertones that complement a wide variety of main dishes. Corn pudding with jalapenos was a spicy and comforting twist on the classic creamy corn casserole often found in vintage American kitchens. This dish mixed sweet corn kernels with eggs, milk, and a mild chili pepper to add a gentle heat that warmed the palate without overpowering it. Betty Crocker cookbooks recommended this variation to bring a little excitement and flavor complexity to the traditional corn pudding, a beloved side at holiday meals and family dinners. The jalapenos provided a subtle kick that balanced the natural sweetness of the corn, while the custardy texture made it irresistibly creamy and satisfying. Baked until golden and slightly puffed, this corn pudding offered a colorful, flavorful accompaniment that stood out on the table. It was a way for home cooks to add personality to a simple vegetable side while keeping things approachable for all ages. This recipe remains a nostalgic nod to creative mid-century cooking that embraced both comfort and a touch of spice. Fried okra bites were a popular Southern-inspired side dish made by breading and frying bite-sized pieces of tender okra until golden and crispy. This dish was celebrated in Betty Crocker cookbooks for its crunchy texture and distinct Southern charm, bringing a satisfying crispness to the dinner table. The okra was sliced into small rounds, dipped in seasoned cornmeal or flour mixtures, then fried in hot oil to create a crunchy exterior that contrasted with the okra's soft, slightly mucilaginous inside. Fried okra bites were a favorite at family barbecues, picnics, and holiday feasts, often served alongside fried chicken and other comfort foods. Their crispy coating and mild flavor made them a hit with kids and adults alike. This dish represented mid-century America's love for Southern flavors and the creative use of regional ingredients in everyday cooking. Fried okra bites remain a nostalgic reminder of communal gatherings filled with hearty, flavorful food. Smashed peas and potatoes was a creamy, comforting side dish that combined mashed peas and potatoes into a smooth, lightly seasoned blend. This vintage recipe appeared in Betty Crocker cookbooks as an economical and satisfying vegetable side that brought together the best of two staples. Peas were cooked until tender, then mashed together with boiled potatoes, butter, salt, and pepper to create a velvety texture and harmonious flavor. The dish was praised for its simplicity and heartiness, offering a way to stretch ingredients while still delivering on taste and nutrition. Smashed peas and potatoes was often served with roasted meats or fried dishes, providing a creamy and slightly sweet complement. Its mild flavor and smooth consistency made it a family-friendly choice that could be prepared quickly and easily. This recipe reflects the mid-century focus on comfort and practicality in the kitchen, turning simple vegetables into a satisfying and nostalgic side dish. Sweet corn relish was a tangy and sweet condiment made from fresh corn kernels combined with onions and peppers, often pickled to create a crunchy, flavorful side. This relish was featured in Betty Crocker cookbooks as a versatile accompaniment that added zest and texture to sandwiches, grilled meats, and picnic spreads. The corn was mixed with diced onions and sweet or hot peppers, then dressed in a vinegar-based solution that gave it a bright, tangy kick. Sweet corn relish was prized for its balance of sweetness from the corn and sharpness from the pickling, creating a refreshing counterpoint to heavier dishes. It was easy to prepare and store, making it a popular homemade staple during mid-century summers and harvest seasons. This relish captured the era's enthusiasm for preserving fresh produce while adding bold flavor to everyday meals. Its crunchy texture and lively taste made it a memorable and well-loved side that brought brightness to any plate. Tomato and cucumber aspic was a refreshing vegetable aspic, combining ripe tomatoes, crisp cucumbers, and a light gelatin base for a cool, savory side dish. This vintage recipe was common in Betty Crocker cookbooks as an elegant addition to summer dinners and potluck gatherings. The tomatoes and cucumbers were diced and suspended in a clear, savory gelatin flavored with herbs and broth, creating a visually appealing and palate-cleansing dish. Served chilled, this aspic offered a crisp texture and mild, refreshing flavor that balanced richer main courses. Its unique texture and vibrant colors made it a conversation piece on the dinner table, while its lightness provided a cool contrast during warmer months. Tomato and cucumber aspic reflected mid-century America's fondness for creative gelatin dishes that were both decorative and delicious. This side dish remains a nostalgic reminder of a time when aspics were celebrated for their culinary flair and home cook ingenuity. Baked parsnips with honey was a sweet and warming side that showcased roasted parsnips glazed with honey and herbs for a unique vintage flavor. This dish appeared in Betty Crocker cookbooks as a comforting root vegetable recipe that turned humble parsnips into a subtly sweet, caramelized delight. The parsnips were peeled, sliced, and baked until tender, then drizzled with honey and sprinkled with herbs such as thyme or rosemary to add fragrance and depth. The honey enhanced the natural sweetness of the parsnips, creating a rich glaze that coated each bite with warmth and flavor. Served alongside roasted meats or poultry, this side brought a touch of elegance and seasonal comfort to the table. Baked parsnips with honey captured the mid-century love for transforming simple vegetables into memorable dishes through the magic of roasting and glazing. It remains a nostalgic favorite for those seeking a sweet and savory vegetable accompaniment with old-fashioned charm. Cold noodle salad with sesame dressing was a chilled side dish featuring tender noodles tossed in a nutty, flavorful sesame dressing and mixed with crisp, chopped vegetables. This recipe was featured in Betty Crocker cookbooks as a refreshing and light accompaniment to heavier mains, perfect for warm weather meals and picnics. The noodles, often spaghetti or thin egg noodles, were cooked and cooled before being combined with a dressing made from sesame oil, soy sauce, vinegar, and a touch of sweetness. Chopped vegetables such as cucumbers, carrots, and scallions added crunch and color, making the dish both visually appealing and texturally satisfying. Cold noodle salad with sesame dressing offered a harmonious blend of savory, tangy, and nutty flavors that delighted the palate. It was prized for its simplicity, versatility, and ability to be prepared ahead of time. This dish reflected mid-century America's growing interest in international flavors and lighter fare, while still maintaining approachable home cooking sensibilities. Potatoes. Anna looked like something you would see at a fancy restaurant, but Grandma made it with nothing more than a sharp knife, a heavy pan, and a little patience. She would slice potatoes paper thin and layer them with butter. No shortcuts, no fuss. The pan would go on the stove first to crisp the bottom, then into the oven to bake until golden and crackling on the edges. When she flipped it out onto a plate, it came out in one perfect buttery circle. The center was tender, the outside crisp, and every bite was simple but rich. Potatoes Anna might sound French, and it is, but like many things, Grandma made it her own. You could find it next to roast beef or a pork chop, or sometimes served all by itself when there was not much else. It was elegant without being complicated, and filling without being heavy. These days, you would need a mandolin and a YouTube video to pull it off. But Grandma just had her hands, her memory, and a cast-iron skillet. And that was all she needed. Baked cheese grits casserole was the kind of rich, creamy side dish that made Southern tables feel whole, showing up at Sunday dinners, holiday spreads, and community potlucks when comfort food was king. You would cook up grits until soft, mix in butter, cheese, eggs, and sometimes a little cream, then bake the whole thing until bubbly with a crisp, golden top. It was hearty, affordable, and easy to pull together with pantry staples, making it a go-to for feeding families, friends, and neighbors without breaking the bank. Baked cheese grits casserole came straight from the pages of old cookbooks, the kind tucked in kitchen drawers or passed down through generations in handwritten recipe cards. Families leaned on dishes like this because it stretched ingredients, filled plates, and added that creamy, comforting balance to heavy main courses like ham, fried chicken, or pork chops. You might not find it on modern menus outside the South today, but back then, it was a dependable, beloved side that made even the humblest meal feel complete. It was simple, it was filling, and it was pure comfort, straight from the heart of the kitchen. Cornflake-crusted fried bologna was one of those quick, crispy fixes that turned a plain slice of bologna into a satisfying meal in no time flat. You dredged a slice of bologna in crushed cornflakes, tossed it in a hot skillet, and fried it until the edges curled and the coating crisped up. That was it. No fancy ingredients, no complicated steps, just a fast, crunchy meal made from pantry staples. It might sound odd now, but back when budgets were tight and groceries had to stretch, this was a clever way to turn everyday bologna into something that felt a little more special. The cornflakes added crunch, the bologna sizzled up with salty flavor, and the whole thing came together in under 10 minutes. You would find this recipe scribbled into old cookbooks, passed around busy households, or whispered between neighbors looking for quick, affordable meal ideas. It might seem forgotten today, but for plenty of families back then, cornflake-crusted fried bologna was a fast, filling fix when time and money were both running short. Applesauce toast with nutmeg was the frugal breakfast tucked inside every homemaker column and Depression-era guide when groceries ran low but mornings kept coming. You would toast a slice of bread, smear it with applesauce, sprinkle a little nutmeg on top, and breakfast was done in under 10 minutes. It was practical, filling, and sweet enough to feel comforting when everything else felt stretched thin. Families leaned on meals like this when fruit was scarce, budgets were tight, and creativity had to carry the kitchen. Applesauce lasted longer than fresh fruit, nutmeg added warmth, and toast turned it all into a quick meal that actually filled you up. It was not fancy, but it worked, and you could find it everywhere from farm kitchens to city apartments. Some folks added butter, others kept it plain, but either way, it was one of those quiet little breakfasts that made hard mornings feel a little easier. These days, applesauce toast barely gets a mention, but back then it quietly carried families through. Okay, now that we've covered the respectable mutton, let's move on to something a bit more, shall we say, adventurous: smoked squirrel. In the early days of barbecue, this little critter made quite a splash at gatherings. If you think about it, the squirrel is kind of like nature's version of a barbecue snack: small, tasty, and with just the right amount of seasoning. The smoked squirrel was typically prepared by slow smoking the meat until it was infused with a rich, smoky flavor. It was a favorite among pioneers and early settlers who needed to make the most of their resources. While it might sound a bit unusual today, it's a great example of how barbecue traditions evolve based on what's available and what people enjoy. These days, you might not see a smoked squirrel on your local barbecue menu, but it's definitely a dish that deserves a place in barbecue history. Cottage cheese salad was the quiet hero of mid-century potlucks and family suppers, even if no one talks about it much anymore. You would start with a scoop of plain cottage cheese, soft, tangy, and mild. Then fold in fruit like pineapple, sliced peaches, or even chopped tomatoes, depending on the occasion. Some versions leaned sweet with whipped cream or gelatin. Others stayed savory with cucumbers or chives. Either way, it was a refreshing, creamy dish that needed no cooking and very little prep. It was served chilled on a lettuce leaf or in a glass bowl, the kind that caught the sunlight just right. It might not have turned heads, but it always got eaten. Cottage cheese salad was something you made when you wanted to offer something light, simple, and just a little different. It was affordable, nutritious, and versatile, ideal for hot summers or holiday tables alike. Today, it has all but vanished, replaced by packaged sides or dressed-up grain salads. But those who remember it know how comforting that cool, creamy bite could be. Sometimes the quietest dishes are the hardest to forget. Pear salad with cheese and mayo might sound like the punchline to a joke now, but once upon a time it was a Southern classic that filled old cookbooks and family tables with its quirky, sweet, savory charm. You would take canned pear halves, top them with grated cheese, usually sharp cheddar, and add a dollop of mayonnaise right in the center, sometimes finishing it off with a cherry on top. It was a strange little salad, but folks loved how it balanced salty, creamy, and sweet flavors all on one plate. This dish came straight from the pages of vintage community cookbooks, the kind passed around at church gatherings, luncheons, and backyard picnics all across the South. Pear salad earned its spot at the table because it used affordable pantry staples, dressed up the meal, and stretched ingredients when fresh produce was hard to come by. You might not find it at potlucks today, but back then, seeing those glossy pears and shredded cheese meant your hostess brought out her best, even if the combination raised a few eyebrows. It was strange, it was thrifty, and it was pure vintage comfort on a plate. Peanut butter and sweet pickle sandwiches were one of those strange combinations that somehow became a regular part of vintage kitchen routines. You spread creamy peanut butter on soft sandwich bread, added sliced sweet pickles, and pressed it together. That was it. Quick, crunchy, and a little tangy with just enough sweetness to balance it out. It sounds odd now, but back then, it was a favorite for busy lunches, quick after-school snacks, or when there was not much else in the pantry. The peanut butter gave it richness, the pickles added bite, and together they made a sandwich that stuck to your ribs and kept you going. You would find this one scribbled in old recipe boxes passed around at church picnics or quietly tucked into Grandma's cookbook among the other quirky 10-minute meals. Families leaned on this recipe because it came together fast, filled you up, and used ingredients most people always had on hand. It might be forgotten now, but for plenty of households back then, peanut butter and sweet pickle sandwiches were a surprising lifesaver when time and money were both running short. Cottage cheese with canned fruit cocktail was the speedy, no-cook breakfast that lived in every 1970s diet book and homemaker guide, promising light meals that took barely any effort. You would scoop cottage cheese onto a plate, pour canned fruit cocktail over the top, and breakfast was done in under 10 minutes. Sweet, creamy, and surprisingly filling, it worked when mornings were busy, but everyone still needed something practical to eat. Families leaned on meals like this when groceries were tight, and dieters swore by it for being low effort and satisfying enough to skip the fancy recipes. It was a trick you could find tucked inside women's magazines, diet plans, and community cookbooks trying to stretch fruit and dairy into a real meal. Some folks added nuts or honey, others kept it plain. But either way, it quietly filled countless tables before frozen meals and boxed breakfasts took over. Funny how those quick, reliable meals slipped away. Let's move to barbecued pork blood sausage, also known as morsilla, which is a dish that's as unique as it is flavorful. Now, this isn't your average sausage. Traditionally, pork blood sausage was made with pig's blood mixed with rice, spices, and other ingredients. The mixture is then stuffed into a casing and cooked. Barbecuing adds a smoky depth to the already complex flavors. This delicacy is particularly popular in regions like Spain, Portugal, and the Philippines. In these countries, blood sausage is a beloved ingredient in many traditional dishes. While it might not be for everyone, blood sausage offers a rewarding experience for adventurous eaters. Its rich history and unique taste make it a fascinating dish to try. Stuffed baked onions were the kind of dish that made you think Grandma knew a little magic. She would peel and hollow out big yellow onions, then fill them with a warm mixture of breadcrumbs, herbs, and maybe a bit of sausage if meat was on hand. Then she would roast them until the outside was soft and golden and the center bubbled with flavor. The smell alone would bring people into the kitchen. It was impressive without trying too hard. Just an onion, transformed into something elegant. You might find them at a Sunday dinner or as a side for a special roast. They looked like something out of a restaurant, but were made from the humblest ingredients. Stuffed onions stretched the grocery budget and elevated whatever else was on the plate. You would cut through the tender layers with a fork and get a mix of sweetness and savory warmth. It is hard to imagine a time when onions took center stage like that, but Grandma knew how to make the most of what she had. Today, we just chop them and toss them in a pan. Back then, they were stars. Golden Glow carrot salad was one of those bright, zesty side dishes that added color and crunch to dinner tables, especially when meals were built around whatever you could grow or stretch from the pantry. You would take shredded carrots, mix them with lemon-flavored gelatin, and fold in crushed pineapple for sweetness, letting the whole thing set into a glossy, citrusy mold that practically glowed on the plate. It sounds unusual now, but back then, molded salads were a potluck favorite, and this one stood out for its bold color and refreshing bite. Families leaned on recipes like this because it was affordable, easy to throw together, and made even the humblest meals feel a little more special. Golden Glow carrot salad showed up at Sunday suppers, holiday spreads, and backyard picnics, sitting proudly next to roast chicken, casseroles, or fried pork chops. Its stretched ingredients added brightness to heavy plates and gave meals that cheerful, homemade touch. You hardly see it now, but once upon a time, this glowing salad was a quiet symbol of kitchen creativity and making do with simple, practical ingredients. Tomato and sugar. Open-faced sandwiches were one of those quirky summer snacks that showed up when gardens were full, money was tight, and lunch had to be quick and simple. You sliced a fresh tomato, buttered a piece of bread, sprinkled sugar over the top, and that was it. A little sweet, a little juicy, and ready in minutes. It sounds strange today, but back then, this was a familiar plate across farm towns and small kitchens all over America. The tomatoes were easy to grow, the bread stretched what you had, and the sugar turned it into a treat that brightened up long summer days. Families leaned on recipes like this when grocery lists were short and mealtime had to be stretched with what was already growing out back. You would find this simple snack scribbled in old cookbooks, passed around at neighborhood picnics, or taught to kids as one of their first kitchen lessons. It might seem forgotten now, but for plenty of folks back then, tomato and sugar sandwiches were a fast, filling reminder of how far a little garden and a little creativity could go. Buttered cornflake toast was one of those forgotten 10-minute breakfasts that once lived in every kid's cookbook or church bulletin. You would toast a slice of soft white bread, slather it with butter or peanut butter if you had it, then smash some cornflakes on top. That was it. Crunchy, sweet, filling, and ready before the school bus pulled up. It was not some gourmet recipe, just a quick fix that felt special on rushed mornings. Most families kept cereal on hand anyway, and this was a way to stretch it when the grocery budget was tight. Sometimes parents sprinkled sugar on top, other times it was plain, but either way it turned leftover cereal into breakfast that actually stuck with you. You could even swap peanut butter for jam or just plain butter, depending on what was left in the fridge. These kinds of quick breakfasts were everywhere in old cookbooks. Simple, made from pantry staples, and good enough to get everyone out the door without complaints. Okay, we're back to pork, but in a whole new way. Pork cracklins. These delicious morsels were made by frying the skin and fat of the pig until they were golden brown and crispy. In America, cracklins were often enjoyed as a snack or served as a topping for various dishes. Now, these haven't completely fallen off the radar, so if you still want to try them, I guess it's time to book a flight. In the Philippines, pork cracklins are known as chicharron, and they're a popular snack and ingredient in many traditional dishes. Chicharron is often enjoyed with a tangy vinegar dipping sauce or used to add crunch and flavor to stews and soups. Ambrosia salad was not really a salad in the way we think of salads today. It was a dessert disguised as a side dish. Grandma would fold together canned mandarin oranges, crushed pineapple, shredded coconut, mini marshmallows, and whipped cream, sometimes with a spoonful of sour cream to give it balance. It was creamy, sweet, and just fancy enough to make it onto the holiday table next to the turkey or ham. For many families, this was a taste of celebration. Kids loved it for the marshmallows, adults appreciated the simplicity, and everyone agreed it belonged at every potluck. Ambrosia was the kind of thing that made it into every community cookbook. Easy to make, hard to mess up, and always a crowd pleaser. You could throw it together with pantry items, let it chill for a few hours, and it would hold up just fine. Some versions added maraschino cherries or pecans for a little extra flair. These days, you might see similar flavors in retro-themed desserts, but the original ambrosia has mostly disappeared from our tables. Maybe it was too sweet, too fluffy, or just too old-fashioned. Celery Victor sounds like a recipe that came from a fancy hotel menu, but this marinated celery dish made its way into regular households thanks to those old cookbook collections in every drawer. It was as simple as boiling celery until tender, chilling it in broth or vinegar, and serving it up with herbs or hard-boiled eggs when you wanted to show off. You could find it at potlucks or holiday tables, dressed up to look fancier than it was. People back then knew how to stretch even the humblest ingredients into something worthy of company. Celery Victor turned plain celery into a crisp, tangy salad that felt like a proper side dish next to roasted meats or casseroles. It showed up in cookbooks throughout the 1930s and 40s, passed along at church suppers and family gatherings. Egg salad on toast was one of those practical 10-minute meals that filled lunchboxes, fed tired workers, and showed up in every community cookbook for good reason. Leftover boiled eggs were never wasted. You chopped them up, mixed them with mayonnaise, maybe a little mustard if you were lucky, and piled it all onto a slice of toast. It sounds plain, but it got the job done. The eggs were filling, the toast made it portable, and you could whip it up in no time flat. This was not about fancy ingredients or gourmet flavors. It was the kind of recipe people leaned on when money was tight, time was short, and families still had to eat. You would see it at church luncheons, quick weekday dinners, or scribbled down on worn recipe cards tucked into kitchen drawers. It might be forgotten now, but egg salad on toast kept plenty of households going when they needed it most. Egg salad on white bread, open-faced, was the speedy breakfast that showed up in every 1960s lunchroom and kitchen guide when mornings were short but something filling still needed to hit the table. You would mash pre-boiled eggs with mayo, salt, and pepper, spread it on white bread, and serve it open-faced. That was breakfast, ready in under 10 minutes, practical, affordable, and good enough to carry you through the day. Families leaned on meals like this when groceries were limited, but eggs stretched far and filled hungry bellies. It was not fancy, but it was reliable, tucked into community cookbooks and school lunch guides that promised quick, no-fuss meals. Some folks added pickles or herbs, others kept it plain, but either way, it turned leftover eggs into something that worked fast. These days, it is rare to see egg salad show up outside of potlucks or picnics, but back then, it was a small, simple breakfast that actually stuck with you. Creamed pearl tapioca was a dish that confused most people the first time they saw it, but it had a quiet charm that stuck. Grandma would cook the tiny pearls slowly until they turned translucent and soft, then fold them into a thick, savory base with cheese, onions, or even bits of ham or mushrooms. It was like a casserole crossed with a pudding. Strange, but comforting. The texture was warm and creamy, with a soft bite that held everything together. You would not find it on many dinner tables today, but back then, it was a way to stretch ingredients and use up pantry staples in unexpected ways. It was often baked until the top turned golden and set, then scooped onto the plate beside a roast or served in ramekins for something a little more refined. It had a richness that felt out of place for how inexpensive it was to make. Most people remember tapioca as a sweet dessert, but this version belonged to the savory world, and it was a world all its own. Applesauce JellO Salad was one of those quirky, retro sides that only made sense when you were flipping through the faded pages of mid-century cookbooks. But for years, this was a potluck classic everyone recognized. You would mix sweet applesauce with cinnamon-flavored gelatin, let it chill until firm, and slice it into glossy, bright red servings that wobbled onto dinner plates. Some folks added chopped nuts or whipped topping, but at its core, this recipe was simple, affordable, and stretched pantry staples into a playful sweet side. Applesauce JellO Salad showed up everywhere from church suppers to backyard picnics, offering a cool, tangy balance to heavy meals like meatloaf, pork chops, or casseroles. It made you smile, even if it raised an eyebrow. Families loved how easy it was to throw together using ingredients they already had, turning a plain dinner into something a little more colorful. You hardly see it now. But back then, that shiny red salad was proof that even the simplest ingredients could brighten up the table and bring comfort to mealtime. Tomato soup with cracker crumble was the ultimate quick fix when groceries were low and appetites were high. You heated up a can of tomato soup, crushed some saltines over the top, and called it a meal. It sounds basic, but it hit the spot. Grandma's cookbook was full of these quick, practical recipes that stretched every last pantry staple, and this one was no exception. The saltines soaked up the soup, adding just enough crunch and thickness to make it filling. Parents loved it because it cost next to nothing and came together in 10 minutes flat. Kids loved it because it was warm, salty, and familiar. You could always dress it up with a sprinkle of cheese or some pepper, but most families kept it plain and simple. It was the kind of meal you would find after school, in chilly weather, or on those nights when there just was not time for anything else. Fast, affordable, and quietly forgotten, like so many of the recipes tucked into the back pages of Grandma's old cookbook. All right, let's talk about a barbecue ingredient that's more often found in the pot than on the plate: smoked turkey necks. Now, these aren't exactly barbecue stars, but they do deserve a mention. Smoked turkey necks were once a popular ingredient in soups and stews, adding a rich, smoky depth to dishes that made them savory. The process of smoking turkey necks involved slow cooking them over a wood fire, which infused the meat with a smoky flavor while keeping it tender and juicy. Although they might not be the star of modern barbecue menus, smoked turkey necks still hold a special place in the hearts of those who appreciate their unique flavor and versatility. Hot fruit compote was the kind of side dish that brought comfort in the coldest months of the year. Grandma would bake a mix of canned or fresh fruits, apples, pears, peaches, cherries, together with a little cinnamon, sugar, and maybe a splash of orange juice or brandy. Served warm, it was sweet but not sugary, soft but never mushy. It sat beside baked ham, roast beef, or pork tenderloin, and offered a gentle sweetness to balance all the salt and spice. Compote made use of whatever fruit was around, even the bruised or overripe pieces. It was practical and indulgent at the same time. Some versions added raisins or nuts, others leaned on citrus zest for brightness. Either way, it made the kitchen smell like something special was happening. Today, most people do not think to warm fruit as a side dish, but once, it was a small gesture of love, something to round out a meal and make it feel whole. You can almost still taste it if you close your eyes. Sweet and sour red cabbage was the tangy side dish that anchored family dinners, potlucks, and Sunday suppers for decades. You would slice red cabbage, simmer it with vinegar, sugar, and maybe bacon or apples for extra richness, and let it cook down until tender and glossy. The result was sweet and sour braised cabbage with a deep color and a bright, tangy bite that balanced heavier meals like roast pork or fried sausage. It came from old-world cooking traditions brought by European immigrants and slipped into American cookbooks by the 1940s. Folks leaned on cabbage to stretch meals when times were tight, but they still wanted hearty, flavorful sides. Sweet and sour red cabbage earned its place at the table by turning basic ingredients into something special. You hardly see it today unless you are flipping through vintage cookbooks or dining in old-school German restaurants, but back then, it was a dependable side that made plain meals feel brighter. Fried potatoes and onion skillet was a fast, hearty stovetop meal that showed up in countless kitchens when times were tough and bellies needed filling without much fuss or money. You would slice up potatoes, chop some onions, heat a little oil or butter in the skillet, and fry everything until golden and crispy. That was it. It sounds simple now, but back when groceries were scarce and time was short, this was a meal that worked. The potatoes filled everyone up, the onions added flavor, and the skillet turned humble pantry staples into something hot, hearty, and satisfying. Some folks added eggs, bacon, or herbs if they had them, but most kept it practical and affordable. You would find this recipe scribbled on old note cards, tucked into grandma's cookbooks, or passed down by word of mouth through generations of families who knew how to stretch every last ingredient. Fried potatoes and onions might seem forgotten today, but back then, it was a reliable fix for hungry families trying to make groceries last, keep dinner on the table, and survive the lean weeks when every meal counted just a little more. Now, squirrels aren't the only bushy-tailed animals on the list, because barbecued rabbits were the talk of the town in the early 20th century. In rural areas where game meat was more common than store-bought cuts, rabbit was a go-to option. Think of it as a tender, flavorful rabbit marinated in a tangy sauce and then grilled to perfection. It's like the barbecue equivalent of a Sunday roast but with a bit more pizzazz. The barbecued rabbit was often seasoned with a blend of herbs and spices that set it apart from other barbecue options available. Rabbit barbecue wasn't as exotic as a squirrel, but it was still pretty uncommon. It was a staple in many rural barbecues. People would gather around the pit, sharing stories and swapping rabbit recipes. But as times changed, so did tastes. It's a shame, really. I mean, low fat, high protein, and finger-licking delicious. What's not to love? Wilted lettuce salad sounds like something gone wrong, but in Grandma's kitchen, it was magic. She would start with tender leaf lettuce, picked fresh if she had a garden, and pour a hot dressing made from bacon drippings, vinegar, sugar, and salt right over the top. The leaves would soften slightly, just enough to take on the tangy, savory warmth of the dressing. Sliced onions or hard-boiled eggs were sometimes added depending on the season. It was best eaten immediately, while still warm, and it felt like a treat even though it was made from next to nothing. The flavor was bold, salty sweet, and impossible to forget. Wilted lettuce was especially common in the Appalachian South and the Midwest, where thrift met tradition in the best ways. It turned plain greens into something special without needing cheese, croutons, or bottled dressing. These days, people want their salads cold and crisp, but there was something deeply satisfying about a bowl of warm greens straight from Grandma's hands. Mock oyster casserole, also known as eggplant dressing, was one of those clever Depression-era recipes that made its way into old cookbooks and never fully disappeared. The name might raise a few eyebrows now, but the whole point was to create a rich, flavorful casserole that mimicked the texture and heartiness of oyster stuffing without needing expensive seafood. You would take cooked eggplant, breadcrumbs, onions, and herbs, bake it until golden on top, and serve it as a side dish at holiday dinners or Sunday suppers. It filled out the table, stretched garden produce, and made even the simplest meal feel just a little more complete. Back then, you could find recipes like this scribbled in the margins of faded cookbooks or passed along at church potlucks. People knew how to make do with what they had, and this casserole proved that even eggplant could stand in for something fancier. You might not find it on modern menus, but back then, eggplant dressing was a practical, comforting side that made every meal feel just a little more special. Which vintage Betty Crocker side dish would you try first? Drop a comment, like, and subscribe for more delicious nostalgia.